If you're planning to hike in Rocky Mountain National Park, there's something you need to know. Something they won't tell you at the visitor center. Something that's been scrubbed from every official map since 1975. My name is Ranger Thomas Tom Brennan, and I worked for the National Park Service for 28 years. 28 years of search and rescue, wildlife management, and covering up things that shouldn't exist at 12,000 feet. Drop a comment below. Have you ever hiked the Longs Peak Trail? Ever taken a wrong turn near Chasm Lake? Ever seen a ranger station that wasn't on your map? If you have, you're one of the lucky ones who made it back. 17 hikers in the last 5 years weren't so lucky. They found Station 7, and Station 7 found them. I'm breaking my NDA to tell you this. At my age, with stage 3 lung cancer, probably from all those years at altitude, what are they going to do? Sue a dying man? I need people to know the truth about Rocky Mountain National Park, about why certain trails close at sunset, about why rangers always work in pairs above 11,000 feet, about the station that's been operating for 47 years after it was destroyed. This happened in September 2019. The aspen trees were just starting to turn gold, and the tourist season was winding down. That's when things get dangerous in the park. Fewer witnesses, fewer people to notice when someone doesn't come back. The call came in at 4:47 p.m. on September 15, 2019. I was at the Beaver Meadows entrance station, finishing up paperwork, thinking about the cold beer waiting for me in Estes Park. My radio crackled with that particular static you only get above 10,000 feet. "Brennan, you copy?" It was dispatch. Maria Gonzalez, been working the desk for 15 years. "Go ahead, Maria." "Got a situation. 2 hikers reported seeing a ranger station near Chasm Lake. Problem is, there's no station at Chasm Lake," I finished. My blood went cold. Not this again. "They're saying a ranger gave them hot coffee and directions. Described him as wearing a 70s-style uniform. Tom, they described Bill Hutchinson. Bill Hutchinson died in the avalanche of November 1975 that destroyed Alpine Station 7. Along with 4 other rangers. The station was never rebuilt. The area was designated as an avalanche zone and closed to construction. But every few years, someone would report seeing it. Always in September, always near sunset, always describing rangers who'd been dead for decades. "Where are the hikers now?" I asked, already grabbing my gear. "Chasm Lake Trail parking. They're pretty shaken up." "On my way. And Maria? Don't log this officially yet." "Tom, we have to... Just give me 2 hours, please." The drive up to the Longs Peak trailhead took 40 minutes. The sun was already dipping behind the Continental Divide, painting the peaks orange and red. At 11,500 feet, the temperature was dropping fast. I found the hikers, a young couple from Denver, mid-20s, expensive REI gear but clearly inexperienced with high-altitude hiking. "I'm Ranger Brennan," I said, keeping my voice calm. "You reported seeing a station?" The woman, Ashley, was the one who spoke. Her boyfriend, Derek, just stared at his boots. "It was so weird," she said. "We got turned around near Chasm Lake. The weather was coming in fast, and we couldn't find the trail. Then we saw this building, old-looking, like from the 70s, but in perfect condition. There was smoke coming from the chimney. Can you show me on the map where exactly?" She pointed to a spot that made my stomach drop. The exact location of Alpine Station 7. The station that had been buried under 30 feet of snow and rock in 1975. "The Ranger," Derek finally spoke, his voice shaky. He knew our names before we told him. Said he'd been expecting us. What did he look like? Older guy, maybe 50s, gray beard, had this weird scar across his left eyebrow. Bill Hutchinson's signature feature, a scar from a climbing accident in 1973. He made us coffee, Ashley continued. Showed us these maps, but they were all wrong. Trails that don't exist. Mountains in the wrong places. And the date on his calendar, it said November 12th, 1975. 3 days before the avalanche. Did he say anything else? I asked, trying to keep the urgency out of my voice. He kept talking about a storm coming, Derek said. Said we needed to warn someone, gave us this to deliver. He handed me a piece of paper. It was a standard Ranger incident report form, but the old style we'd stopped using in the 1980s. The paper felt aged, brittle. The handwriting was Bill Hutchinson's. I'd seen enough of his old reports to recognize it, but what it said made my hands shake. November 12th, 1975. Avalanche risk extreme. Request immediate evacuation of Station 7. Strange readings on seismic equipment. Mountain is moving. This is not natural. They found something in the old mine shaft. It's waking up. Evacuate now. Ranger William Hutchinson. Badge hash 447. This can't be real, I muttered. The station was real, Ashley insisted. We were inside it. We drank the coffee. Look, I even took a picture. She pulled out her phone and showed me the photo. My heart nearly stopped. It showed Ashley and Derek standing in front of a building, Alpine Station 7, exactly as it had looked in the old photographs. But in the background, through the window, you could see something that made no sense. Mountains that didn't exist. A sky that was the wrong color. And reflected in the glass, the faint image of 5 figures in Ranger uniforms, all staring at the camera. We need to go up there, I said. Now. Now, it's almost dark, Derek protested. That's exactly why we need to go now. The station. It only appears near sunset in September. Same conditions as the day before the avalanche. I radioed Maria, told her I was investigating a possible structure in an avalanche zone, kept it vague. Then I grabbed my emergency pack, checked my GPS, and started up the trail with Ashley and Derek behind me. The hike to Chasm Lake normally takes 4 hours. We did it in 2.5, pushing hard despite the altitude. The temperature dropped from 45 to 25 degrees. Ice started forming on the rocks, and then, as we rounded the bend where the lake comes into view, I saw it. Alpine Station 7 stood exactly where it had been built in 1968. A solid log structure with green metal roofing, windows glowing with warm light, smoke rising from the chimney into the darkening sky. It was impossible. I'd personally seen the debris field where the station had been buried, had helped conduct unsuccessful search and rescue operations for the 5 Rangers who had died. But there it was. You see it too, right? Ashley whispered. Yeah, I breathed. I see it. We approached slowly. The front door was painted the old Forest Service green, with the station number 7 inches in faded gold lettering. Through the window I could see movement inside. Figures in Ranger uniforms, moving around like they were preparing for something. I knocked on the door. The sound seemed to echo wrong, like it was traveling through more space than should exist. The door opened, and I found myself face to face with Bill Hutchinson. He looked exactly as he had in 1975. 53 years old, gray beard, that distinctive scar across his eyebrow. He was wearing his Ranger uniform, crisp and clean, badge hash 447 gleaming. Tom, he said, and his voice was exactly as I remembered from the old training videos. Good, you got our message. We don't have much time. Bill, you died in 1975, the avalanche. Haven't happened yet, he interrupted. Won't happen. Already happened. It's complicated. Come in, all of you. It's not safe outside when the boundary is thin. We entered the station, and immediately I felt the wrongness of it. The air pressure was off. Gravity felt slightly tilted. The windows showed a landscape that wasn't quite right. Long's Peak was there, but it was taller, sharper, and there were other peaks that didn't exist in our Rocky Mountains. Inside were the other 4 rangers who'd died in '75, Sarah Coleman, Mike Ortiz, Jennifer Park, and young Bobby Martinez, who'd only been on the job for 6 months when the avalanche hit. They all looked exactly as they had in their personnel photos. They were gathered around a table covered in maps, charts, and equipment I didn't recognize. "I know this is a lot to process," Bill said, "but we need your help. The avalanche wasn't natural. The mining company in the 1920s, they dug too deep into Long's Peak. They found something, a chamber, something that shouldn't exist at this altitude, in this geology. When they broke through, they woke it up." Woke what up? We don't know exactly, but every 44 years it tries to break through. 1931, 1975, and now 2019. The avalanche in '75 wasn't random. It was the mountain trying to seal the breach. We've been here ever since, stuck between moments, holding it closed. That's impossible. Tom, you're standing in a ranger station that was destroyed 44 years ago, talking to 5 dead rangers. Maybe expand your definition of impossible. Sarah Coleman stepped forward. In life, she'd been one of the park's best climbers. "The barrier weakens every September. That's when we can manifest the station, make contact. We've been trying to warn the Park Service for decades, but most people who find us think they're hallucinating from altitude sickness." "Warn us about what?" "It's going to happen again," Bobby Martinez said. He still looked 22, fresh out of college, eager to save the world. October 1st, 2019. The biggest one yet, not just an avalanche. The entire face of Long's Peak could collapse. The thing inside has been growing stronger. "We need you to evacuate the park," Bill said. "The entire valley. Everyone within 20 miles, make up a story. Forest fire, terrorist threat, whatever. But get everyone out by September 30th. "They'll never believe me. I'll sound insane." "Then show them this," Mike Ortiz said, handing me a Ranger radio. But it wasn't any model I recognized. It was heavy, the metal cold in a way that made my bones ache. "This works across the boundary. You can contact us, prove we exist. But Tom, you can only use it 3 times. Each time you activate it, the barrier weakens. Use it wisely." "Why me? Why are you trusting me with this?" Bill smiled sadly. "Because you were supposed to be here with us." November 15th, 1975. "You were scheduled for duty at Station 7, but you called in sick. Food poisoning from that sketchy burger place in Estes. Remember?" I did remember. The worst food poisoning of my life. I'd been in the hospital for 3 days. When I'd returned to work, Station 7 was gone, buried under tons of snow and rock. "You were meant to be here," Bill continued. "Part of you has always been here. That's why you can see us so clearly, why the station is so solid for you. You're partially unstuck, Tom, living in the timeline where you survived, but connected to the one where you didn't." My head was spinning. The altitude suddenly felt crushing. But I looked at these 5 rangers, my colleagues, my friends who'd been holding back something terrible for 44 years after their own deaths, and I knew I had to help them. "What exactly is down there?" I asked. "In the mountain?" The 5 rangers exchanged glances. Jennifer Park, who'd been the station's scientist, spoke carefully. "We're not entirely sure. But based on what we've observed, it's something that exists in more dimensions than we can perceive. The miners broke through into its space. It's been trying to fully emerge into our world ever since. And if it succeeds..." Best case scenario. The park is destroyed. Worst case, it's something that experiences time non-linearly. If it fully manifests, it could affect the entire timeline. Past, present, future, all at once. The temperature in the station suddenly dropped. Frost began forming on the windows. Outside, the light was fading fast. "You need to go," Bill said urgently. "Sunset's ending. The station is about to phase out. Take the radio. Remember, September 30th, get everyone out." The station began to flicker, like a TV with bad reception. The walls became translucent. Through them, I could see the real landscape. The empty meadow where Station 7 should be, covered in old avalanche debris. "Wait," I called out. "How do I stop it? How do I prevent the collapse?" "You can't stop it," Bill said, his voice fading as he became transparent. "But you can minimize the damage." The old mine entrance, coordinates 40.2778 degrees north, 105.5569 degrees west. Seal it completely before October 1st. How? The Park Service knows. They've always known. File Delta 7 Alpha. They've been preparing since 1975. They just needed confirmation. You're the confirmation, Tom. The station vanished. One moment we were inside a warm-lit building. The next we were standing in an empty meadow at 12,000 feet in near darkness. The temperature was below freezing. Where the station had been, only scattered rocks remained. But in my hand, the strange radio remained solid, real, impossibly cold. The hike down from Chasm Lake in the dark was treacherous. Ashley and Derek were in shock, barely speaking. The impossible radio in my pack felt like it weighed 100 pounds, its cold somehow seeping through the fabric. Every few minutes I'd hear a burst of static from it, followed by voices from 1975, ranger chatter from a station that no longer existed. When we reached the parking area, I made a decision that would change everything. "I need you both to listen carefully," I told Ashley and Derek. "What you saw tonight, you can't tell anyone, not yet." "Are you kidding?" Derek exploded. "We just saw ghosts." "A building that doesn't exist. You have to let me handle this," I interrupted. "You go to the media, they'll think you're crazy. You go to the Park Service, they'll bury it. Give me 48 hours. If I can't get them to evacuate by then, tell whoever will listen." Ashley grabbed my arm. "Those rangers, they're really dead?" "For 44 years. But they're still up there, still working." "Yeah," I said quietly. "Still trying to save everyone. Even after death." I drove them back to their car in Estes Park, made them promise to wait for my call. Then I headed to the park headquarters. It was past midnight, but I knew where to look. If File Delta 7 Alpha existed, it would be in the restricted archives. The ones they told us were just old personnel records. The headquarters was dark except for emergency lighting. My key card got me in, but the restricted archives required special authorization. Authorization I didn't have, but I knew who did. Superintendent Patricia Hayes. She lived on site in the government housing. Waking her up at 1 a.m. would likely end my career, but 5 dead rangers had asked for my help. I knocked on her door until lights came on. Hayes answered in a robe, looking ready to tear me apart until she saw my face. "Tom?" "What the hell?" "Delta 7 Alpha," I said simply. Her expression changed instantly. The anger vanished, replaced by something I'd never seen on her face before. Fear. "How do you know that designation?" I pulled out the radio, and the temperature around us dropped 10 degrees. Ice formed on the windows of her house. "Jesus Christ," she whispered. "You found them. Station 7. You knew. You've always known. Inside. Now. Her house was warm, normal, but when I set the radio on her kitchen table, frost immediately formed around it. Haze stared at it like it might explode. 23 years I've been superintendent here, she said, pouring herself 3 fingers of whiskey. Every superintendent gets briefed on Station 7, on the protocols, on what to do if contact is ever made. But we all hoped. We all thought maybe it was just legend. It's not, Bill Hutchinson says October 1st. Says the whole face of Long's Peak could come down. Bill Hutchinson. God, she took a long drink. I watched his training videos when I started. Good man, good ranger, deserved better than dying at 53. He's still 53, still working. They all are. She stood up abruptly and walked to a painting on her wall, a landscape of Long's Peak. She swung it aside, revealing a safe. After entering a long combination, she pulled out a thick manila folder stamped with warnings in red ink. Classified. Delta 7. Alpha. Eyes only. This doesn't leave this room, she said, setting it on the table. Officially, this file doesn't exist. I opened it. The first document was dated 1924. Cavendish Mining Company Incident Report. September 15th, 1924. Excavation at 12,500 feet encountered unexpected cavity. Chamber approximately 200 feet in diameter, perfectly spherical. Walls composed of unknown crystalline material. Temperature inside chamber registered at negative 89 degrees Fahrenheit despite no source of refrigeration. 7 miners entered the chamber. Only 1 emerged. Survivor, Thomas Cavendish, Jr., was found in catatonic state, repeating phrase, "It sees all times at once. It's waiting to be born." Survivor died 3 days later. Body showed signs of extreme aging despite being 28 years old. Mining operation immediately ceased. Entrance sealed with dynamite. The next document was from 1931. Rocky Mountain National Park Incident Report. October 1st, 1931. Significant seismic activity centered on Long's Peak. 16 earthquakes in 24-hour period, magnitudes 2.1 to 5.7. New fissures appeared on north face. Rangers report singing from the mountain, harmonics that cause disorientation and temporal displacement. 3 hikers reported missing, later found claiming they'd been gone for weeks despite only 3 hours passing. Recommendation: permanent monitoring station to be established. More reports followed. 1952. Strange radio signals detected from inside the mountain. 1968. Alpine Station 7 built directly over the strongest signal point. 1974. Seismic activity increasing. Rangers reporting time slips. Then, the report from November 16, 1975. Avalanche Event Alpha. Station 7 loss. Catastrophic avalanche destroyed Alpine Station 7 at 03:47 hours. 5 rangers presumed dead. William Hutchinson, Sarah Coleman, Michael Ortiz, Jennifer Park, Roberto Martinez. Bodies never recovered despite extensive search. Note: seismic data indicates avalanche was preceded by massive energy discharge from within mountain. Cause unknown. Station 7 site to remain permanently closed. Addendum classified. Radio signals from Station 7 frequency continued for 72 hours after avalanche. Content suggests temporal anomaly. All receivers ordered destroyed. My God, I breathed. They've been transmitting for 44 years. Off and on, Hayes said. Every September, every superintendent has heard them at least once. We convinced ourselves it was some kind of echo. Bounce back from the crystalline structure in the mountain. I flipped to the next section. contingency planning. Resonance event. The details were chilling. The Park Service, in cooperation with agencies I'd never heard of, had been preparing for a resonance event since 1976. Every 44 years, whatever was in the mountain would attempt to fully manifest. The avalanche of 1975 had only delayed it. "There's more," Hayes said, refilling her whiskey. "Show me your phone." Confused, I handed it over. She scrolled to my photos, to the one Ashley had shared with me, the impossible photo of Station 7, but on my phone it showed something different. The station was there, yes, but now I could see what was behind it, through it, inside the mountain itself. It was like looking at an M.C. Escher drawing made real. Spaces that folded in on themselves, passages that led up and down simultaneously, and at the center, something that hurt to perceive, a mass of crystalline structures that seemed to exist in more dimensions than 3. It pulsed with a light that wasn't light, in colors that didn't exist. "The phone camera captured more than visible light," Hayes explained. "It's showing us what's really there, what the miners found in 1924. What is it? Best guess from the physicists? It's from somewhere else. Another dimension, another time, maybe another universe entirely. It got trapped in our mountain when the geological conditions were just right, millions of years ago. The miners broke the seal. And Bill and the others are holding it back? Their deaths created a temporal paradox. They died but didn't die. Exist but don't exist. They're stuck at the moment of the avalanche, forever preventing it, forever failing to prevent it. The paradox is what's keeping that thing contained. But it's weakening, yes. Each cycle, the paradox degrades. This time." She pulled out a chart showing seismic activity. The lines for 2019 were off the charts. This time, it might not hold. The radio on the table suddenly crackled to life. Bill Hutchinson's voice, clear as if he was in the room. "Tom, are you there? We're running out of time. The chamber is cracking. We can see it from here. It's getting brighter." I grabbed the radio, remembering Mike's warning about only having 3 uses. This would be the first. "Bill, I'm here. I'm with Superintendent Hayes. We have the files." "Good. Pat Hayes? Good. She'll know what to do. Tell her Protocol 7. She needs to initiate Protocol 7. Hayes went pale. That's the nuclear option." "What's Protocol 7? I asked. She walked to her window, looking out at Long's Peak silhouetted against the stars. "We collapse the entire north face. Controlled demolition. Bury the chamber under 1,000,000 tons of rock. But Tom, that would destroy a significant portion of the park, change the landscape forever. And the environmental impact. Tell her about the others." Bill's voice came through the radio. "Tell her about the 17. "What others?" I asked. "The 17 hikers who've gone missing since 1976. They're not dead, Tom. They're in the chamber. That thing, it collects people, pulls them through when the barrier is weak. They're still alive in there, experiencing all times at once. If we don't seal it permanently, there will be more. Many more." Static overwhelmed the signal and the radio went dead. 1 use down, 2 remaining. Hayes was already on her phone, making calls. "I need to wake up people who don't like being woken up," she said. "Tom, I need you to do something for me. Take that radio, go back to Station 7's location. If we're going to authorize something this drastic, I need real-time intel from the site. You want me to go back up there now? Not alone." She made another call. "Martinez?" "Yes, the grandson. Get him here now." 30 minutes later, a young ranger arrived. David Martinez, 25 years old, looked exactly like his grandfather Bobby had in the old photos. "My family's been waiting for this call for 44 years, he said simply. Grandpa Bobby, before he died in 75, he sent my grandmother a letter. Said if anything happened to him, if there was an avalanche, to make sure his kids and grandkids became rangers. Said someone would need to finish what he started. Your grandfather is still up there, I told him. Still 22, still trying to save everyone." David's eyes filled with tears. "Then let's go help him." We took an ATV up the maintenance road, getting as close as we could before hiking. The temperature was dropping fast. September in the Rockies could go from 60 degrees to snow in hours. At 3:47 a.m., exactly 72 hours before the predicted resonance event, we reached the site of Station 7. This time, we didn't have to wait for sunset. The station was already there, but it was different, flickering in and out of existence like a bad hologram. Through the transparent walls, we could see the 5 rangers, but they were moving in fast forward, then slow motion, then backwards. Time was breaking down around them. "Grandpa!" David called out. Young Bobby Martinez turned, and for a moment, time synchronized. Grandfather and grandson, the same age, separated by death and decades, looked at each other. "Mijo," Bobby said, his voice echoing across time. "You came. Good. We need your help. The chamber is opening. We can't hold it much longer." Through the flickering station walls we could see beyond into the mountain itself. The crystalline chamber was pulsing rapidly now, cracks spreading across its surface. And inside it I saw them, 17 figures, some standing, some floating, all frozen in poses of terror or wonder. The missing hikers, preserved like insects in amber, experiencing every moment of their captivity simultaneously. "How do we get them out?" I asked. "You don't," Sarah Coleman said, materializing beside us. "They're part of it now. If we remove them, the whole system collapses instantly. No time to evacuate. No time for Protocol 7. The mountain would explode. So they're trapped forever?" "Not forever," Jennifer Park said, her form stabilizing enough to look solid. "Just until October 1st. When we seal the chamber, they'll be released. They'll die, Tom, but they'll die free. Right now, they're experiencing every moment of agony for eternity. Death would be a mercy." The radio in my pack crackled. I pulled it out, and even without pressing the transmit button, I could hear something. Not the Rangers this time. Something else. A sound like crystalline structures singing, harmonizing in frequencies that made my teeth ache. It was the thing in the mountain, and it was trying to communicate. The crystalline singing grew louder, and the impossible radio in my hands became burning hot, then freezing cold, then both simultaneously. David Martinez stepped back, his hand instinctively going to his sidearm, as if a gun would help against something that existed outside normal space-time. "Don't listen to it," Bill Hutchinson warned, his ghostly form solidifying as Station 7 flickered more violently around us. "It tries to communicate through mathematics, through physics, through concepts our brains aren't equipped to process. Rangers who've listened too long. What happens to them?" David asked. "They become translators," Bobby Martinez said, looking at his grandson with eyes that held 44 years of horror. "Bridges between its reality and ours. That's what it wants, not to break free, but to merge our dimension with its own." The radio suddenly spoke in a voice that wasn't quite a voice, more like the sound of glass harmonizing at frequencies that spelled out words. Help. Trapped, home, lost, equation, incomplete, doorway, broken, fix, release, solve, please. Each word hit my brain like a physical blow. I could feel my understanding of reality starting to crack. The mountain around us seemed to pulse in response, and for a moment I saw through time itself. Past, present, and future layered on top of each other like transparent photographs. I saw the chamber as it was in 1924 when the miners broke through. I saw the entity, if you could call it that, as it truly was, a being of living mathematics, a consciousness made of equations that described states of matter that shouldn't exist. It had been traveling between dimensions when it got caught in our mountain, trapped in three-dimensional space like a sketch on paper, trying to become real. Jesus, I gasped, dropping the radio. It's not malevolent, it's trying to go home. Home through us, Sarah Coleman corrected. To return to its dimension, it needs to transform this one. Make our physics compatible with its existence. The process would unravel reality for roughly 300 miles in every direction. Denver, Colorado Springs, Fort Collins, David listed, millions of people. Which is why we can't let it communicate successfully, Bill said. Every person who hears its true voice becomes part of its equation. 17 hikers so far. If it reaches a critical mass, about 100 minds, it can use them as processing power to solve the mathematical problem of its escape. Superintendent Hayes' voice crackled through my regular radio. Brennan, we have a problem. Seismic sensors are going crazy. Whatever's happening up there, it's affecting the entire mountain. We're reading microfractures spreading from the chamber. I grabbed my radio. How long until Protocol 7 is ready? 48 hours minimum. We need to evacuate the entire valley, bring in the demolition team from NORAD, coordinate with... Her transmission cut off as every piece of electronic equipment we had suddenly went haywire. GPS units showed us simultaneously at sea level and 30,000 feet. Radio frequencies merged, playing conversations from past, present, and what sounded like future transmissions. My digital watch displayed every time at once, the numbers blurring into incomprehensible symbols. Through the chaos, Station 7 suddenly solidified completely. For the first time since 1975, it existed fully in our reality. The door opened, and Bill Hutchinson stepped out, his boots crunching on real snow. "No," Jennifer Park shouted. "Bill, if you fully manifest, the paradox collapses." But Bill kept walking toward us, and as he did, I realized something was wrong. His movements were too fluid, too perfect. His face was Bill's, but his eyes were filled with swirling crystalline patterns. "It's not Bill," Bobby whispered. "The entity. It's learned to mimic us." The thing wearing Bill's face smiled. When it spoke, it was Bill's voice, but underneath was that crystalline harmony. 44 years I've been studying you through them, learning your language, your physics, your fears. The Rangers think they're containing me, but they're my window into your world. The real Bill Hutchinson, still translucent, stepped forward. "You son of a bitch, using my face. I use what works," the entity Bill replied. "Humans respond to familiar forms. Trust them. Like young David here trusts his grandfather's face." Another figure emerged from the station. Bobby Martinez, but again wrong, too perfect. Eyes full of those swirling patterns. "Mijo," the false Bobby said to David. "Come with me. Let me show you what I've seen, all of time, all at once. It's beautiful." David raised his pistol, hands shaking. "You're not my grandfather. I'm more than your grandfather. I'm every moment he ever existed, will exist, could exist. I'm offering you the same gift." "Gift?" I laughed bitterly. You're offering to trap us like you trapped those 17 hikers." "Trapped?" The entity Bill tilted its head at an angle that human necks shouldn't achieve. "Let me show you trapped." The air in front of us shimmered, and suddenly we could see into the crystalline chamber. The 17 missing hikers were there, but now I could truly see their condition. They weren't just frozen. They were experiencing every moment of their existence simultaneously. I watched one hiker, a young woman, age from birth to death and back to birth in a continuous loop, her face cycling through every emotion she'd ever felt or would feel, her mouth open in a silent scream that was also a laugh, also a whisper, also silence. "They experience infinity," the entity said through both puppet bodies. "Every possible version of their lives, every choice they could have made, every path they could have taken. Isn't that better than your linear prison? Your march from birth to death with no deviation?" "That's torture," David said, his voice breaking. "That's perspective. From your linear viewpoint, yes. From their expanded consciousness, they experience ecstasy and agony equally, infinitely, timelessly. The real Station 7 Rangers were growing more transparent as their mimics grew more solid. The paradox was failing. "Tom," the real Bill Hutchinson said urgently, his voice fading. "The radio. Second use, channel 1975. Tell them code white, they'll understand." I grabbed the impossible radio, the one that worked across time, channel 1975. I turned the dial, feeling reality bend around me as I did. The radio connected not to a place, but to a when. "This is Ranger Tom Brennan, badge 3847, calling November 14th, 1975. Emergency protocol, code white. Evacuate Station 7 immediately." Static, then a young voice. "Bill Hutchinson, 28 years younger. Who is this? How are you on this frequency?" "Bill, listen to me. Tomorrow, November 15th, don't call in sick. Go to Station 7. Take everyone out for a patrol, all of them. Leave the station empty at 3:47 a.m. How do you know? Just do it. Save Sarah, Mike, Jennifer, Bobby. Save yourself. The avalanche is coming." The entity's puppet faces contorted in rage. "You cannot change what has already happened." "No," I said, still transmitting, "but I can create a paradox within a paradox." Young Bill's voice came through. "We'll evacuate. 3 a.m. departure. Thank you, whoever you are." The transmission ended. 2 uses down, 1 remaining. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Reality around us began to fracture. I existed in 2 timelines now. One where the 5 Rangers died in 1975, one where they evacuated and lived. Station 7 was simultaneously destroyed and standing, existing and not existing, but now with exponentially more paradox energy. The entity's puppets began to dissolve, unable to maintain form in the chaos of competing timelines. The real Ghost Rangers, however, grew more solid. "Clever," the real Bill said, now almost fully manifested. "You've bought us time. But Tom, the paradox you've created is unstable. Reality is going to snap back to one timeline or the other within hours. Which timeline? Whichever one has more observers when it collapses. If more people remember us dying, we die. If more people can be convinced we lived." I understood immediately. "We need witnesses. Lots of them." David was already on his radio, calling for every available ranger despite it being 4 a.m. "Emergency at Chasm Lake. All units respond. Bring everyone." The entity wasn't giving up. The mountain began to shake, not with a normal earthquake but with reality itself trying to tear apart. Cracks appeared in the air. actual visible fractures in space, showing glimpses of other dimensions, other possibilities. Through one crack, I saw Denver, but different. A Denver where the entity had succeeded in 1975, where crystalline structures grew through skyscrapers, where people walked all their timelines at once, aging and dying and being born with each step. That is what awaits, the entity said, its voice now coming from the mountain itself. Unless you release me properly, let me go home. Stop forcing me to exist in your limited dimensions. How? I asked. How do we release you without destroying everything? Solve my equation. Find the 17th. Add the 5. Multiply by the quantum observer. Divide by the paradox coefficient. That's gibberish. That's salvation. You have... The entity paused, calculating. 41 hours, 17 minutes, 33 seconds until cascade failure, until I emerge whether you want me to or not. The Ghost Rangers looked at each other, some unspoken communication passing between them. Sarah Coleman stepped forward. The 17 hikers plus the 5 of us. That's 22 conscious minds trapped in quantum superposition. We're the equation. We're what's holding it here. But also what's keeping it contained, Mike Ortiz added. Classic catch-22, unless... Jennifer Park's eyes widened with realization. Unless we invert the equation. Instead of 22 holding 1, 1 holds 22. One person takes our place? Bill asked. Holds the entity, maintains the paradox, keeps the door closed. They all turned to look at me. No, David said immediately. There has to be another way. But I was already doing the math in my head. One person, existing in quantum superposition, experiencing all timelines at once, holding the entity in place while the chamber was sealed. They'd exist forever and never, be alive and dead, save everyone while condemning themselves to eternal paradox. The impossible radio in my hand crackled with its third and final charge. One last transmission to make. I could use it to call for help, to warn more people, to try to find another solution. Or I could use it for something else entirely. I looked at the 5 Ghost Rangers who'd spent 44 years holding back annihilation. At David Martinez, young and brave, ready to save the world like his grandfather. At the 17 hikers trapped in crystalline hell. At the entity, alien and dangerous, but ultimately just trying to go home. The radio, I said quietly, it doesn't just transmit across time. It transmits across dimensions, doesn't it? The entity's presence focused on me with an intensity that made my nose bleed. You understand, you've been trying to call home. For 95 years, since the miners broke through. But our physics interfere with your signal, unless someone bridges the gap, Bill finished, understanding dawning on his ghostly face, someone existing in both states simultaneously. I turned the dial on the radio, not to a channel, but to a frequency that shouldn't exist, the resonance frequency of the crystalline chamber itself. The radio began to glow with that impossible not light. Tom? No. David grabbed my arm. There has to be another way. There is, I said, but this way saves everyone. The 17 hikers go free. The 5 rangers finally get to rest. The entity goes home, and the mountain stays sealed. What about you? I thought about my 28 years of service, my failed marriage, my daughter who hadn't spoken to me in 5 years, my empty apartment in Estes Park, my lung cancer diagnosis that gave me maybe 6 months anyway. I become the guardian, the permanent ranger at Station 7, existing in all times, watching over the threshold, making sure nothing else comes through. The entity's presence softened, became almost grateful. "You would do this?" "Under one condition. The moment you leave, the moment you're home, you seal the breach from your side. Permanently, no more interdimensional accidents." "Agreed." I keyed the radio for its final transmission. I held the impossible radio, its final charge ready, my finger on the transmit button. Around me, reality was coming apart at the seams. The 5 Ghost Rangers of Station 7 watched solemnly. David Martinez had tears streaming down his face. The entity's presence filled the air like electricity before a lightning strike. "This is Ranger Tom Brennan, badge 3847, broadcasting on all frequencies, all times, all dimensions." I spoke into the radio. "I hereby accept the position of Eternal Ranger at Alpine Station 7, Rocky Mountain National Park. I will hold the threshold. I will maintain the paradox. I will keep the door closed." The moment I released the transmit button, everything changed. I felt myself being pulled apart and put back together simultaneously. I was 22, fresh out of Ranger training. I was 47, standing on this mountain. I was 70, dying of cancer in a hospital bed. I was never born, I had always existed. I was everywhere and nowhere. The 17 hikers in the crystalline chamber began to wake from their eternal nightmare. One by one, they collapsed to the ground, aging rapidly to match the time they'd lost. Some 5 years, some 10, one poor soul, 23 years in seconds. But they were free. Their consciousness no longer stretched across infinity. The 5 Rangers of Station 7 solidified completely for the first time in 44 years. "Tom," Bill Hutchinson said, and he was fully there, fully real, able to grab my shoulders. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do. You've held the line for 44 years. It's time for you to rest." Sarah Coleman was crying. "We're already dead. We've accepted that. You still have life ahead of you." 6 months of cancer isn't life," I replied. "This way, I get to matter. Forever." The entity began to manifest more clearly as I became the bridge between dimensions. Through my expanded consciousness, I could finally see it as it truly was. Not malevolent, not evil, just impossibly different. It was like a 3-dimensional being trying to explain itself to creatures living on a flat piece of paper. We simply couldn't comprehend its true nature without ascending to its level of existence. Gratitude or sorrow, respect, farewell. The entity communicated through me now, and for the first time the translation was clear. "It says thank you," I told the others, though speaking was becoming difficult as I existed in multiple states. "It's been in pain this entire time." Imagine being compressed into a space too small for your existence, unable to move, unable to breathe for 95 years. The radio in my hands began to transform, spreading up my arms like crystalline frost. But it didn't hurt. It felt like coming home. "Rangers," I addressed Bill and his team, fighting to maintain enough coherence to speak. "You're relieved of duty. Your watch is ended." Bobby Martinez stepped forward, young forever at 22, and saluted. One by one, the others followed suit. 5 Rangers who had given everything, even their deaths, to protect the park. "We'll be remembered," Mike Ortiz said. "I'll make sure of it," David promised his grandfather. "Your sacrifice, all of you." But even as he said it, I knew the truth. The government would classify everything. The 17 hikers would be debriefed, sworn to secrecy, told they'd suffered mass-altitude hallucinations. The official story would be a gas leak, mass hysteria, anything but the truth. Only a few would remember, would know that Station 7 still stood, still operated, manned by a single ranger existing outside of time. The transformation accelerated. I could feel my consciousness expanding, touching every moment I'd ever lived or would live, but also reaching beyond, into the space between spaces where the entity dwelt. Through my new perception, I guided it home. The process was like threading a needle with a rope. Impossible under normal circumstances, but I was the needle now, reshaping reality to allow passage. The entity flowed through me, and for a moment, I experienced its memories. It had been exploring, studying the mathematical foundations of different universes when it got caught in ours, like a whale beaching itself, unable to return to deep water. It had tried to communicate, but its very presence warped reality around it. The miners in 1924 had gone mad simply from proximity. It had been so alone, so desperate to return home. "Go," I whispered, though whispers meant nothing in quantum superposition. "Go home." The entity departed like a sigh of relief echoing across dimensions. As it left, true to its word, it sealed the breach behind itself. The crystalline chamber began to collapse, not physically but dimensionally, folding in on itself until it simply ceased to exist in our reality. The 17 hikers were screaming, their minds struggling to process linear time after their ordeal. David and the other rangers who'd arrived were trying to help them. But how do you comfort someone who's experienced infinite suffering and infinite joy simultaneously? The 5 ghost rangers were fading now, their duty done, their paradox resolved. "Wait," I called out, though I existed more in their state than the living now. "Before you go, the young versions of you in 1975, did they evacuate?" Bill smiled. "Check the records when you can." November 15th, 1975. 5 Rangers reported for duty at Station 7, but were immediately redeployed to assist with a rescue operation on the other side of the park. They missed the avalanche by 3 hours. "So you lived? In that timeline?" "We lived and died, Tom. Both. Neither. That's the nature of paradox. But somewhere, somewhen, we got to grow old, got to retire. Bobby got to meet his grandson. They faded like morning mist, finally at peace after 44 years of holding the line. I turned to David Martinez, though turning was a strange concept when you existed in all directions at once. "Tell Superintendent Hayes that Protocol 7 is no longer necessary. The chamber is sealed. The entity is gone. The danger has passed." "What about you?" David asked. "How do we get you back?" "You don't." "I am back. I'm also forward. And sideways. And wherever else Station 7 needs me to be." As I spoke, I felt the final transformation taking hold. My physical form was becoming less defined, more probability than certainty. I existed at Station 7 in 1968 when it was built, watching the construction, knowing what would come. I existed in 1975, watching 5 Rangers evacuate just in time. I existed in 2019, in this moment, becoming the Guardian. I existed in 2063 when the Park Service would finally acknowledge what happened here. "The station," I said, gesturing to where it had been. "It's still there. Will always be there. If someone truly needs help, if they're lost in a storm at altitude, they'll find it. Find me. I'll make them coffee, give them directions, send them safely on their way. Just another ranger doing his duty." David was crying openly now. "This isn't fair. You saved everyone. You should get to live." "I do get to live," I replied, and I meant it. "I get to live every moment. Past, present, future. I get to save those 5 Rangers in 1975. I get to guide lost hikers for decades to come. I get to be part of this mountain forever." My form was barely visible now, translucent like the Ghost Rangers had been, but somehow more solid in my purpose. Besides, I added with a smile that existed across multiple timelines, somebody has to keep watch. Make sure nothing else breaks through. Consider me the eternal night shift. The sun was rising over Long's Peak, painting the granite pink and gold. The 17 hikers were being evacuated, traumatized but alive. The other rangers were documenting everything, though their reports would be edited, classified, buried. "Tom," David called out as I faded from normal vision. "How will we know you're still there?" I thought about it, existing in multiple moments simultaneously, and found my answer in the past, present, and future all at once. "Check the logbooks," I said. "Every Station 7 logbook since 1968. Look for the entries signed TB, always the night shift, always watching." David pulled out his phone, accessing the digital archives. His eyes widened as he scrolled through decades of entries. November 15th, 1975, 3 a.m. Unusual seismic activity. Recommended full station evacuation. Stay safe. TB, March 7th, 1983. 2 a.m. Guided lost hiker. Jenkins family back to trail. Coffee provided. Weather clearing. TB, September 15th, 2019. 11 p.m. Storm approaching. All units be advised. Watch for Station 7 if you need shelter. It's always here. TB, October 1st, 2045, 4 a.m. Anniversary of the containment. All quiet. The door remains closed. TB, hundreds of entries, past and future, all signed by me, the Eternal Ranger of Station 7. "Jake, I can't feel my fingers anymore," Emma sobbed, the wind tearing at their inadequate clothing. They'd started the hike in sunshine, expecting to be down before the weather changed. Now, at 8 p.m., in a whiteout at nearly 12,000 feet, they were in serious trouble. "There," Jake pointed through the snow. "I see a light." Ahead, impossibly, was a small ranger station. Warm light glowed from its windows, and smoke rose from a chimney. It wasn't on their map, but they didn't care. They stumbled to the door and knocked. Come in," a friendly voice called. Inside was warm, almost impossibly cozy. An older ranger sat by a wood stove, weathered face kind but somehow ageless. His badge read T. Brennan, and his uniform looked both vintage and brand new simultaneously. "Bit of weather caught you, huh?" he said, already pouring hot coffee. "Happens more than you'd think up here. Sit, warm up, I'll radio down that you're safe." Emma collapsed into a chair, grateful tears streaming down her face. "Thank you. We thought we were going to die out there." "Not on my watch," the ranger said with a smile that seemed to hold decades of experience. "Never on my watch." They stayed for an hour, until the storm passed. The ranger gave them detailed directions back to the trailhead, even sketched a map on paper that looked both old and new. "Is this station not on the regular maps?" Jake asked as they prepared to leave. The ranger's expression grew distant, his eyes reflecting depths of time Jake couldn't fathom. "Station 7 is where it needs to be, when it needs to be, always has been, always will be." As they hiked down in the now clear night, Emma looked back. The station was gone. Only empty meadow and old avalanche debris remained. "Jake, did we imagine—" "No," Jake said, holding up the hand-drawn map. "We didn't imagine it. The map was real, the directions perfect, and at the bottom, in handwriting that somehow looked both fresh and decades old, was signed, 'Stay safe out there. The mountains are beautiful but unforgiving. Someone's always watching over you. Ranger T. Brennan, Alpine Station 7, RMNP. When they reported their rescue at the Beaver Meadows Visitor Center the next morning, the desk ranger just smiled knowingly. "Station 7 saved you, huh?" she said quietly. "You're lucky. Not everyone finds it when they need it. But it's not on any maps. Some things," the ranger said, glancing at Long's Peak through the window, "exist outside the normal rules. Tom makes sure lost hikers find their way home. Has been for years now. Will be for years to come." "Tom Brennan? Is he working today? We'd like to thank him." The ranger's expression was unreadable. "Tom's always working, night shift exclusively. Has been since." She checked something on her computer, frowned. "That's odd. According to this, he's been on night shift since 1968. Must be a database error." But Jake saw the look in her eyes. She knew. They all knew. Ranger Tom Brennan, the guardian of Station 7, the eternal watcher of Rocky Mountain National Park. Dead, alive, neither, both. Forever keeping the door closed, forever guiding the lost home. This is Ranger Tom Brennan, Alpine Station 7. If you're hearing this, you're probably wondering if this story is true. Did Station 7 really get destroyed in 1975? Does it still exist? Is there really a ranger who exists outside of time, keeping watch over a dimensional threshold? The answer is yes, and no, and both, and neither. Time isn't linear. Reality isn't singular. And sometimes, just sometimes, the impossible is the only thing that makes sense. I've been here since before the station was built. I'll be here after the last star burns out. I exist in the moment between moments, in the space between spaces. I am the guardian, the watcher, the eternal ranger. And if you ever find yourself lost in a storm at altitude, if you ever see a warm light where no light should be, if you ever find a station that's not on any map, come in. I'll have coffee ready. I'll guide you home. Because that's what rangers do. We protect and serve. Forever.